When I graduated from SAIS, I had this dream job in mind of working with the civilians and military liaison and doing development in conflict zones. And I found nobody did it. I called all the NGOs. I called, everybody I could think of, and everybody said, we don't really work with the military. We don't do that peacemaking and the development in conflict zones. So I gave up and I became a bureaucrat, and I was working for the White House. And in my portfolio, I was overseeing special operations and stumbled across the description of civil affairs. And I read it and I thought, hey, that's my dream job. I said, oh, but it's in the Army. And then I caught myself thinking, the Army, how bad would it be to join the Army? I said, no, I can't do that. I'm from California. We don't join the Army. Bleeding heart liberal. But by the end of the week, I was calling the recruiters because this was exactly the description of what I wanted to do, the liaison between the military and the civilians to help rebuild civilian governments and societies in the wake of conflict. So I joined the Army and managed to get into civil affairs very quickly, and then went to learn Arabic so that I could do civil affairs in the Middle East. In 2003, I was mobilized with the Army to Baghdad, and was there for about a year and a half on that deployment, and had volunteered to extend for the full 2 years, but they were sending everybody home so they could redeploy us again later. But I had developed all these relationships with Iraqi civil society groups and local leaders, and I didn't want to leave and then let all that fall apart. So I was looking for somewhere else, another organization to stay and work with, and came across USIP, and it just was a match made in heaven since I had already been there, had the relationships. And then so I switched over to USIP and led the Baghdad office for a year and a half, right after it had been started up by Ray Jennings. I had been working with the local civil society organizations in the military and was looking forward to continuing to assist in their development. When I switched over to USIP, we were looking at much more focused mission, and not trying to stand up an entire country, but working with the local expertise that already existed and taking advantage of local interest in peace building, which at that point had become really important as things started going south in the country. And USIP's mission was to find these folks Iraqis who already had ideas, visions, dreams for building more sustainable, peaceful communities, and see what we could do to empower them and support them in their efforts. So that was a really rewarding way to work with people instead of what I had been doing, which was much more pushing an agenda of the U.S. government and worried about how we looked, as opposed to worrying about what the Iraqis could do themselves. I've always been focused on this mission, the peace-building mission, and I was doing it either through the Army or through USIP. It was the same mission for me, and the different organizations gave me a different chance to pursue that. With the military, I was working with people with a gun and as a representative of the U.S. government, and it was a very different situation than working with through USIP, where it's built on expertise and credibility on the issues and what do we have to offer people who are already looking to make their own solutions. But when it comes down to it, I don't feel that I'm that different a person, whether I'm in uniform or civilian clothes, because it's still about focusing on the efforts to build a more sustainable and peaceful society. I'll be heading to Afghanistan tomorrow, actually, working with the security forces of the country. And while that's very different than a lot of the work I've been doing here at the Center for Mediation and Conflict Resolution, there are a couple parallels that I think are going to be really important. The Center for Mediation and Conflict Resolution within USIP works on building tools and resources for mediators and other peacemakers. One of the things we work on is how and whether to negotiate with extremists. Under what conditions do you actually want to engage and work with them, as opposed to just trying to defeat them? And of course, that's an essential question for Afghanistan at this point. The other is something that carries over from the work I did in Iraq, the work I've been doing at the Center for Mediation and Conflict Resolution, and now in Afghanistan. And that is, how do you effectively engage your local partners? How do you work with your local partners in a way that you aren't imposing your own agenda on them, but that you're finding expertise and talent and vision and helping empower that and helping build local capacity to move in their own directions, as opposed to coming in with our own idea of what the solution is and trying to make it happen ourselves.